I call Denise Roach.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to rise to take the first call in the second reading of the Home and Community Support Payment for Travel Between Clients Settlement Bill. Sir, I'm the Industrial Relations spokesperson for the Greens, and I have to say that it was an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be part of the committee, the Health Committee, that was hearing the submissions on this bill. Because, sir, this is a bill that actually seeks to fix some problems. And it's quite unusual in my role as an industrial relations spokesperson in this government to actually be able to agree with this government on anything pertaining to the rights of workers, particularly low-paid workers. But I want to thank the Select Committee in particular. I want to thank the Chair for his role in ushering this bill through that process. It comes back to the House with minor amendments that are reasonably just technical, but also small changes, which, as a previous speaker noted, was actually agreed to by the unions representing the workers in the care sector who had been negotiating with the Crown to get the settlement. So, to recap, sir, the legislation legalises the negotiated settlement that follows after a court case that was taken by the PSA and ETU union for home care support workers to say that there was a breach of the Minimum Wage Act because they were not being paid for the time as they travelled between clients. Now, the reason it's a breach of the Minimum Wage Act, sir, is that generally the wages are so low that when you take the travel time into account and add that to their gross wage, basically, it slipped below the minimum wage, and that's why they took the case there. Now, as a result of this court case, and I want to thank both the unions and the members for taking it, as a result of that, the Crown entered into some negotiations with both the sector, the industry and employers, with the unions and with the officials from the Ministry of Health as well. And they sought to find a way forward to actually deal with the fact that this case and winning the case for payment for travel time between clients would mean back payment for about 28,000 workers who work in the sector. Most of them are women. But as a pragmatic approach, the unions and the members they're representing agreed that they would sit down and negotiate. And I think we need to kind of respect that and show it and show the unions a debt of gratitude, essentially, for getting into the situation where they were, that they would negotiate about this. Because otherwise, it could have the consequence of basically making the health sector go broke, particularly if a back payment was determined by the Employment Relations Court. So, sir, what this bill does is that it doesn't actually offer back pay. Those workers won't get back paid. However, the quid pro quo in any good negotiation, there usually is, the benefits outweigh that. And those benefits are, and it's outlined in the legislation, a payment of mileage to cover the travel costs of 50 cents a kilometre from March this year and 60 cents per kilometre from July the year after. Sorry, from July this year as well, which is up from an average of 33 cents per kilometre. A transition to guaranteed hours of work, which is really, really important in the sector. Frequently, home care workers are the precariat in having shifts changed at very short notice. The deal also includes training for carers to a level 3 qualification within the first 2 years on the job. And this benefits both workers and employers as a skilled and trained and qualified workforce provides exceptionally good care for those who need it most, their clients. And then pay rates The other part of the deal that they've been negotiating, as well as the payment for travel time, is the discussion around pay rates that are better than the minimum wage, where qualifications are recognised in the pay scale. So this was agreed between both the employers in the sector and the workers, represented by the unions and the Crown and the ministries, that this would be where they would negotiate further. And it's a transition, I think, that we need to be seeing come to fruition, given that our population is ageing and home care is going to be more and more of the way that people are looked after into the future. So we need to ensure that people are looked after by the best possible care that they can give. So during the select committee process, there were only 7 submissions, which I guess indicates that it was a well-received piece of legislation. But it was interesting to see where those submitters who those submitters were. 2 of them were from the industry themselves. They were people who employ home care workers. And 1 was from the organisation that represents the home care organisations, the support services themselves. All of them were in agreement that upskilling and upskilling their workforce is a way to ensuring a better service. And they were also very clear that they supported the bill and they supported the whole issue of travel time. The other organisations that submitted, of those 7, were women's organisations, and I found that particularly interesting. So we had submissions from the Business and Professional Women's, the Federation of Business and Professional Women's Incorporated, who actually, in their submission, said that they had a mandate from the annual conference, which was contained in a resolution from May last year, which said that the New Zealand Federation of Business and Professional Women urged the Minister of Health to increase funding to aged care providers to provide pay equity for all aged care workers in accordance with the Equal Pay Act 1972, and to change the funding model for aged care providers to ensure funding increases include ring fencing for pay increases and accountability. So essentially any money that's transferred to service providers actually does make its way into the wage packets of the low-paid women workers themselves. And I guess, sir, this is highlighting the fact that for decades, the women working in the aged care sector have been underpaid and have basically, their exploitation has been what's been keeping the whole sector going. And it's time we recognise that. And this piece of legislation is one way of fixing the first piece of exploitation around the breaches of the minimum wage. So I also want to read a small piece from the one submitter who was just an ordinary citizen, and her name was Mrs. Dalziel. She actually submitted to say that, basically to reinforce the fact that home carers provide a huge and essential service that benefit not only the client, but the families themselves. And she said, I remember the first time a lady arrived with a big smile and happy attitude and dealt with personal healthcare tasks for my elderly parent. It relieved the stress I was experiencing of being forced to intrude on my parents' privacy. She goes on, sir, and I actually thought that it was a wonderful piece of the democratic process to hear this, the first-hand account of the difference home care workers make in people's lives. So we'll be supporting this bill. It's a good bill. It does actually start to fix some of the problems of the exploitation of women carers in the home care sector. Thank you.